Okay, good afternoon. My name is Hugh Sung. I am an employee here at the Battleship New Jersey Museum Memorial, docked here in Camden, New Jersey. Today's October 19th, 2017. We are on board the Battleship New Jersey, and we are joined by Mr. Mark Lewis, who served on the Battleship New Jersey during Vietnam. I'm joined here by Angelo Pizzullo, who's the education manager here at the Battleship New Jersey. And so, Mark, welcome home. Welcome back to the Battleship New Jersey.
Thank you. It's been great.
Okay. And where are you from, Mark?
I'm from Fort Myers, Florida.
Okay, very good. So let's start with how old are you?
I'm 70. Just turned 70.
Okay, happy birthday.
Thank you.
And when did you enlist in the Navy?
In 1967.
Okay. So let's begin with how old were you when you joined the Navy, and what was your inspiration for joining the Navy?
I was 20 years old, and I had stopped going to college, and I was afraid that my draft number was coming up for the Army, so I thought it would be safer to be in the Navy, and I liked being on the water, so I decided to join the Navy.
Okay. What college were you attending?
Edison Junior College in Fort Myers, Florida.
Okay. You were just taking classes?
Right.
Okay. And then you didn't graduate, right?
No, I had an AA.
Okay.
That's all.
All right. So what do you remember from boot camp, and where'd you go for boot camp?
I remember it's the first time this young kid had flown in an airplane, so I took a bus to Miami, spent the night, and then flew to San Diego, and then was picked up in a bus and taken to the barracks. I think it was probably 2 o'clock in the morning, and then they put us in the barracks, and about 2 hours later, after we had just got fallen asleep, some guy walks out into the middle of the barracks and throws one of those GI garbage cans about 10 feet in the air and lets it hit the ground, and we were all standing up at attention before we knew what was going on.
Okay. You said boot camp was in where again?
San Diego.
San Diego?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Any more experiences from boot camp?
No, it was just, I knew I had to go through it. I didn't, nothing bothered me or anything. I remember one time they had this mock ship in boot camp, and they send you there to, do stuff as a sailor. And the officer that was there said, "Hey, Lewis, go get me a cup of coffee." So I went and got him a cup of coffee, and I picked it up like this and set it down. And he said, "Go get me a different cup of coffee." And I said, "Okay." So I went and got him another cup of coffee, and I carried it over and I set it on his desk. He says, "You were in the barracks this morning, right?" I said, "Yeah." And he says, "And when you got up, you had to go to the bathroom and you had to get dressed." He says, "You didn't have time to wash your hands, did you?" And I said, "No." He says, "Bring me a cup of coffee and carry it by the handle." Another thing that happened in boot camp is that I got an ingrown toenail. So they sent me to the, what do they call the hospital in the Navy? I've forgotten.
Sick bay, is it?
Sick bay. They sent me to sick bay. So I had to soak it for a couple of days because it was so infected. So they finally say they're going to cut my toenail out, cut the ingrown toenail out. So a guy tells me, "It's not a big deal. They give you a shot in your toe and it'll be over with in just a couple of seconds." And so they bust me over to the doctor's office, and he says, "Where's that idiot from boot camp?" So I go in, he says, "Sit down." And I sit down on the examination table, and he puts my foot up. And he goes over to the table, and he's getting ready, I think, to give me a shot. And he turns around with the scalpel and cuts my toenail out without any injection at all. And the blood is like streaming down my foot. He wraps gauze around and says, "Get the hell out."
Oh, it's one heck of a boot camp story.
Really?
Okay. All right. Nothing else you remember?
Marching on Nimitz Field, and I was, they elect 2 officers out of the kids, one is like the company captain or so, and then I was asked to be the second in command. So I got the march. I carried a knife, and the other guy carried a sword, and so I don't know why they chose me, but I think I, showed some promise.
Okay. So swimming, gas chambers, small arms training, any of them stand out?
Swimming, I'm not a good swimmer, so I never really liked that. I tell everybody now that I live in Florida, they say, do you like going swimming? And I said, no, I was in the Navy. The idea was to be on the water, not in the water. So swimming I wasn't great at. I had to take your pants off and tie the knot in the legs to make balloons so that you could float. That you had to do that with your shoes on. And firefighting, I remember they put me on the nozzle. We go in, it's filled with smoke, and I lose my balance, and I put my hand up on the rail that's been in the fire all this time and just fry my hand on the railing. But the worst part was sitting out in the sun with all this rubber gear on, and we were like all passing out because we were so hot.
Okay. So after that, did you go to A school?
I don't know if they called it A school. I went to navigation school, and I think because of my the testing they had given me, my aptitude was clerical and mathematical. So they chose for me that I would go to navigation school, and luckily enough, I was first in my class in navigation school. I have a picture of that. I can send it to you too, with a mug. I still have the mug that has a number 1 on it. And I think because of being first in my class in navigation school, I got the billet on the New Jersey.
Okay. So where was this training?
In San Diego.
Same place?
Yeah.
Okay, that was very convenient. So this was a training for a quartermaster duty, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Anything else you remember in training?
No, just that I enjoyed it. It was like natural to me.
Okay. So after training, did you get assigned to New Jersey immediately?
Yes, immediately sent to New Jersey. It was in the Philadelphia shipyard in the dry dock. So I got to see it in dry dock. It was just massive. And so all I remember for the months that we were there is that we chipped paint with paint needle guns from sunrise to sunset. And I mean, it was just continuous, and who knows what was in that paint. It probably had lead in it and everything. Of course, we didn't have any protection. And a few of us, after weeks of doing this, got so many paint chips lodged in our ears that we were losing our equilibrium, and we had to go to sick bay and have them cleaned out. And I was looking on the bridge today, the brass that's at the base of the glass windows. I can remember polishing that over and over and over again.
Okay, so that was the first time you went on board the New Jersey, right?
Right, exactly,
Right.
yep.
So this was during the recommissioning ceremony?
This is prior to the recommissioning ceremony. This is actually getting the ship ready to go for sea trials. I think the sea trials were first before the recommissioning, to make sure. So we took it out on sea trials and fired the guns and did full speed ahead, full right rudder, full left rudder, full reverse. It was just really something. I mean, the ship was shaking. And when it went full right rudder and the ship leans up on one side, I mean, bunks are falling over and all kinds of stuff sliding all over the floor.
Now, this is Angela Pizzilla, Education Manager. We talked about that earlier. Are you aware that the ship, during those sea trials, actually set the world's record for fastest battleship?
No, I did not.
And you are in the Guinness Book of World Record as part of that crew?
That's incredible.
Mhm.
That's absolutely
So
incredible.
you get her up to that speed.
Right.
And then Captain Snyder ordered the full reverse.
Full reverse,
Is that the full
Yeah,
timing?
I forget how long it took for it to stop, but it was like a mile. I mean, because it was going so fast, and the momentum of the ship, I think it took a long time for that to stop. So
Mhm.
it's not going to stop on a dime, that's for sure.
Okay. And then afterwards you returned to Pearl Harbor for...
No, that was going out. We did sea trials just out in the Atlantic.
Oh, in the Atlantic,
I
okay.
went out to Delaware and did sea trials there.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, we did other trials off of San Diego I forget the island that they used to bombard out there, but we did that quite a bit too before we went to Vietnam.
Okay. Did you have to make a stop at Pearl Harbor before Vietnam?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right,
It was
go ahead.
quite a ceremony. When we pulled in, they had the fire boats shooting streams of water. It was really great.
Mhm.
All right. Just to backtrack a little bit, when you saw the battleship for the first time,
Yeah.
what was your impression?
I couldn't believe how big it was. I mean, I'm this little bumpkin guy from Fort Myers, Florida, you know, never been in a big city or anything. And I mean, even today, I was amazed at how big it is. It's just absolutely, for something to be that big and to be that fast and to be that beautiful is just incredible to me.
All right. And after trials, the ship went back for a recommissioning ceremony, right?
Right.
You were on board for that?
Yes.
Okay. How was that?
It was, you know, pomp and circumstance, you know, the typical speeches, and we got tired of standing at attention for so long, and as the officers sat up in front of us, but we all had to stand at attention. And so, you know, it was great to be part of it, but it was a little bit trying.
All right. There was a lot of people attending?
Oh yes, quite a few. I can't remember. I mean, I've seen pictures of it, but it was great. I don't even remember if there was any senators or congressmen or anything that came. Maybe the Secretary of the Navy was there.
All right. And this was during the height of the war.
Right.
Do you remember any, like, protesters or
We-
bad sentiment?
When we were in Philadelphia, in the Philadelphia shipyard, we were shot at from across the Delaware by some protesters. Some bullets had ricocheted off the ship, but I don't know whatever happened from that.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Was it from the Pennsylvania, New Jersey side? Not that it really matters.
Well, we were in the Pennsylvania side, so it was across the Delaware, so I think it was from New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, right from her own namesake state.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. So after the ceremony, you went out the Atlantic and you get to the Panama Canal?
We took it through the Panama Canal, and I was lucky enough to be, I think, Quartermaster of the watch, I think, was the term used for the guy keeping the ship's log. And so I kept the ship's log as we went through the Panama Canal. And the more experienced men were on the helm. But you've heard the story before about there was only 8 inches space on either side of the ship when we were going through the locks, so they had to train a fire hose on it for the entire time we were scraping through there to keep it from catching on fire.
Okay. And you were on the helm at the 05 or 08 level?
I was Quartermaster of the watch keeping the log on the 04.
Okay.
But I usually, when I did stand watch on the helm, it was on the 04.
All right. So from the 04 level, you got to watch the battleship go through the canal.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Anything else you remember during that transition through the canal?
No, it was just exciting.
Okay.
Like I say, I'm this bumpkin, never been anywhere. I'm seeing the world for the first time.
Okay. So after the canal, you went to Pearl Harbor, correct?
Correct.
All right. Anything you remember from that?
I think it was on the way to Pearl Harbor that one of the sailors jumped overboard. I mean, that's what I heard. I didn't see it happen. I didn't have anybody confirm it, but everybody talked about it. And evidently, the word was that he was a conscientious objector and did not want to go to war. I have to backtrack also that in boot camp, I think it was boot camp. No, I'm sorry, after boot camp, it was in A school, that somebody in the barracks committed suicide by cutting his wrists, or attempted to commit suicide by cutting his wrist. And I remember the medics coming to save his life.
Okay. So during that incident when the sailor jumped, you were on the helm, right?
I was on the ship. I don't know if I was on the helm or not. I just heard that someone had jumped off and they weren't going to turn around to look for him or send lifeboats or anything like that.
Oh, okay. Because I can imagine if there was a man overboard, they would probably want to turn the ship around.
Right, but they didn't. I don't think they even announced man overboard.
Oh.
I don't remember that being. Could have happened at night, you know, it could have been that I missed it completely because I was sleeping, it wasn't my watch, but I just know about it.
Okay. So then after that, you got to Pearl Harbor.
Right, and that was exciting. We pulled in the fireboats, the firefighting boats shooting streams of water, and hundreds of people on the dock waiting for us to come in. Coming into dock was a extremely exciting time, especially being up on the bridge, and the sailors would line the sides of the ship, and you know, we slowly being pushed in by tugboats and tying off and everything. It was a spectacle.
And of course, you rendered salute to Arizona, correct?
Absolutely.
Yes, that's always good. Now, just for curiosity, did you ever cross the equator?
Yes.
So you went through that?
Yes, I'm a shellback.
All right.
And
What was that like?
Oh, that was horrible. In fact, you have a display on the ship of something that it was very similar to that. And I'd forgotten part of it, but somebody that was on the ship with me had actually taken home movies of it, and he put it on Facebook about a year ago. And I mean, this firefighting fluid was made out of cow's blood, I think. And they lay us in a coffin and they poured that all over us. And then we had to crawl through garbage, and some of the meaner people had broken glass in it. So, you know, and beating us with hoses, and some guy with grease on his stomach. We had to stick our face in his stomach and he'd rub it like this, and crawl on our hands and knees around the superstructure. And then in this movie, if you can find it, we all just took our clothes off and threw them overboard because they smelled so bad. I mean, they kept this garbage for weeks to make sure that it was really rotten.
Also, on the way to Vietnam,
Yes.
That's when Captain Snyder did something a little special for the for the ship.
I don't
You
know if
wanna
it was
talk
on
about
the
that?
way over there, but maybe it was even when we were recommissioning it, but the 40-inch guns were taken off out of the, I forget what they were called, but the captain had the turrets painted blue like swimming pool on the inside, and he actually filled them with water and put on the, if it was on the way to Vietnam, I don't remember, but I did see pictures of him when he was floating in the pool. He was a character. He was really something. Nicest guy in the world.
Mhm. You mentioned the one time you had to wind his clock.
Well, part of my duties was, and all the navigators did this, and I think it was once a week, we had to wind all the clocks on the ship to make sure they were in sync. So I'd go down to Broadway and walk that hall and go back and forth between the engine rooms. And then, but the most nervous I got is when I had to go up and knock on his door and come out. I didn't know, what, am I supposed to genuflect? Am I supposed to get down on one knee? Am I supposed to stand there and salute until he tells me what to do? So I just go in and I said, here to wind the clock, and he says, go ahead. So he's just down to earth, and I think he said something like, how's it going, Lewis? Are you enjoying yourself or something? He was just a really nice guy.
So when it was your turn to be part of the birthday party, did you enjoy that?
The birthday party?
Well, usually we have a video of, or not video, but photos of Captain Snyder on a monthly basis. Would have cake for the sailors who had their birthday that month. Did you ever get to experience that?
I don't remember that.
Oh, okay.
Might have happened after I left.
Okay.
Because he was still captain for a while after that, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe that was in the 80s or...
No, it was actually Captain Snyder who initiated that. But then again, you said yourself you might have left before that happened.
Yeah.
Because there was a quote that he was tired of cake.
Oh, is that right?
Right. And there was another, again, we like to confirm other stories from other Vietnam veterans. The one time he went down to the mess decks, tried the food, had it secured, had all the food dumped overboard, and made new meals.
I did not know that.
You didn't? Okay,
No.
so you were not part of that.
I knew he used to come down and sit with us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, once in a while, just everybody would like, oh my God, it's the captain. So I think they used to yell attention on deck at first, but after that he said, just sit down and eat.
Right.
But I don't remember him getting rid of. I remember the food being excellent. Very
Now
good.
you know why. You also told me you actually had a brush up with a celebrity.
Oh yeah, at Christmas in must have been 68. Bob Hope and flew in and landed on the fantail with Ann Margaret, Rosie Greer, Les Brown and the band Renown, and they set up on top of turret number 2 and did the entire show. And I remember the best joke that Bob Hope told was that Nixon had gone to see Deep Throat, and now he was trying to get it down pat. And so we all sat up on the forecastle and watched this show, you know, most of us in our 20s, on Christmas Day, thousands of miles away from home. And we laughed and laughed and laughed until we cried. I mean, we cried our eyes. Of course, he was good at getting that emotion out of you. And then after the show, I went up on the 04, and he was down on the 03 on the signalman's deck, and I leaned down, and he shook my hand.
Mm.
Okay. So any other celebrities or world leaders that you remember coming on board?
No, not that I can remember. I remember Neil Leifer, the photographer for Life magazine, came on for quite a bit of time, and I'd see him around, but other than that, I don't remember. I remember that there was someone that was not a celebrity that came on the ship when we were in port once, and that was a prostitute who was snuck onto the ship by the master-at-arms. They had her, I think, in the master-at-arms shack for a week.
Hmm.
Oh,
Okay.
boy.
All right. Anything else you remember about Captain Snyder?
No, I didn't have a lot of run-ins with him. I didn't. All I knew that, you know, I knew when he was around, but usually I was, you know, doing my work or standing watch at night or those kind of things. I remember one night I got up and I thought, oh my God, I'm late for watch. So it was in the middle of the night, so I got up and got my clothes on and I ran up to the bridge and I saw some other people there that weren't part of my watch, you know, that weren't that my group. I said, what are you guys doing here? I said, Louis, it's not your watch now. You're the next watch. So I woke myself up in the middle of the night. Another story is that in Pearl Harbor, Lou Rawls was at the EM Club, and late at night, he had gotten a lot of the black people upset. And I was supposed to go up and go to watch, and I'm coming up on deck, and this black guy that I knew says, Louis, don't go out on deck. There's fights everywhere. There's people being knifed, you know, sailors knifing other sailors and stuff. So I went up through officers' quarters and came back down, and I'm sitting there, standing there on the quarterdeck, and the officer that's in charge, officer of the deck, tells the bosun mate and I, because he sees a fight, he says, you guys go out there and break up that fight. He said, we're not going out there to break up that fight. They've got knives. I mean, we don't have any weapons. We're not going to go out there and do that. So he didn't force it. But the bosun mate and I look at each other like, are you nuts?
Okay. So just backtrack about the food. You said it was great.
It was great.
Any examples what was being served?
Other than the green eggs for breakfast, the breakfast meats were always good, and you know there's plenty of it. But I think it was on Christmas Day that we actually had steak and lobster. I mean, we had. I mean, it was great. Of course, we had a barber shop and an ice cream shop, and you know, as they called it, ghee dunk, that we would go eat. But another thing about the ship is that I was at 20 or 21, I was very amazed. Of course, I'm seeing the world for the first time, that when we pulled into like Japan, that some of the older people on the ship, they'd go find the first bar, and that's as far as they go into the country, and get drunk and come back. I went into Tokyo and wandered down the Ginza, walked to the palace, went into restaurants and ate, bought souvenirs, and even in Singapore and the other places I went, I tried to see the country, and it was just an amazing thing to me. And as I'm walking down the Ginza, this American walks up to me, and he's a real estate agent, and he's trying to sell me property in Florida. And this is in Tokyo.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So back to the ship.
Mhm.
Do you remember the ship's store or the quick stop?
I don't remember the quick stop, or if it was called that. It was just like a bunch of sundries and stuff, wasn't it? Or you could buy toothpaste and those kind of things.
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah.
Do you remember what else is being sold in like the ship store?
No, I don't think I ever really used it.
Huh.
I don't even think I went to the barber shop. I think they were afraid it was too military a cut, that we'd get our hair cut somewhere else.
Okay. So before we go into the ship in combat, anything you remember when the ship was not in combat?
Nope.
Okay. No games you usually play?
No.
Okay. Any magazines, songs you listen to?
I know that when we were overseas, a bunch of us bought these Akai reel-to-reel stereos. Oh my God, some of the music that came out of those. I mean, we were addicted to them. In fact, that one door that you tried to open today,
Mhm.
I think was a storeroom, and we would keep one of the Akais in there so that we could go in and listen to the music. In Manila, in Subic Bay, there were these bars. Of course, back it was like the Wild West. I mean, there were shootings in the street and everything in Subic Bay, but the bars, and I didn't drink, so I would just go for the music. The bands could mimic the Beatles. You could not tell the difference. And these are Filipinos that are singing these songs, and the music was played incredibly great. And I mean, I just used to love to go over there.
Okay. Any port of calls that stand out?
Singapore was unbelievable, and I actually liked Subic Bay because they had ships, or they had sailboats that we could take out and sail in the bay, for nothing. I mean, it was part of the part of being at the naval base there. But it was like swimming in an aquarium because the water was crystal clear and the most beautiful fish.
Okay, so now to when you get to war,
Okay,
into the firing line.
all right.
Any first impressions?
Here's my first impression. My first day at General Quarters, my first General Quarters station was after Lookout. So it's just behind turret number 3, forward of turret number 3, and there's little holes around there that you peek out. And it was hot back there and everything. So anyway, we can see machine gun fire on the shore and things like that. So the captain comes on and says that a plane has been hit and they're going to ditch. So we had a destroyer behind us, and so here comes the plane. We see the plane and 2 parachutes go out. So we know there's nobody in the plane. So the plane has nobody in it, and it starts heading right for the New Jersey. I mean, we're looking right at it, and it turns and goes like this and hits, maybe a quarter mile away, but still, we were petrified, and the captain was like, oh my God, what the hell's going on? And it looked like an underwater explosion when it hit the water. Just incredible. Could have been the end of the whole tour right then.
Okay, but you did rescue those pilots.
Oh yeah, they
right?
got rescued, yeah.
Okay. So when you're firing for the first time, do you remember that?
Oh
Like-
yeah, it was, we had to get used to knowing what the salvo alarms, they taught us about the salvo alarms, but we had to get used to how powerful the compression of those guns going off, sometimes 2 at a time. And after I got to get up on the 08 and I was taking bearings, I was fairly close to turret number 2, so if you were at the right angle and you heard the salvo alarm and you covered your ears, you could actually see the shell leave the muzzle. It was incredible.
All right, so these were the 16-inch guns, right?
Right, exactly.
Do you remember the 5-inch guns
Oh,
going
God,
off?
they were horrible. They were louder or more, they bothered me more than the 16-inch guns. Because you had the salvo alarm because, you know, so you got ready for it. But the 5-inch guns were like, it was such a loud pop. Got tired of it. And the deck would be, I think when we first got over there, it was for the counteroffensive from Tet, and we just shot continuously day and night, and the deck was just full of the 5-inch gun casings.
Okay. You can be either in the '08 level or the '04 level,
Mhm.
watching and witnessing all these.
Right.
Okay. Do you remember the whole ship, like, shaking from the concussions?
I remember at sea trials shooting all 9 guns at once to one side, and I forget how many feet the ship went sideways, but I think it was like 100 feet or something like that, maybe more.
Well, so when you fired the first time, do you remember that first engagement? Where were you shooting at?
I'm either taking bearings to keep the ship in a position, or I'm on the radar taking bearings, so I'm not really engaged as to what the target is. I'm just, my responsibility was to help the navigator keep the ship on course.
Okay. Supposedly in one engagement, the ship sank an island.
I had just heard about that today. I know that at one point, somebody on shore shot some small velocity rifles or something, maybe a bazooka or something like that, and it just, of course, bounced off the ship. Maybe in response, that's when the island was sunk.
Well,
Yeah.
Any other engagements you remembered or stand out?
No, it got to be kind of just the everyday thing. I mean, we weren't firing at an enemy that was firing back at us. You know, we were just firing, it was just a routine. We'd
Okay.
pull off line at chow time so we could eat without the guns going off. And one time, we're pulling back into the firing line, and I went up after chow and had a full stomach, so I laid my head down on the flak jacket on the 08. And the next thing I know, I hear the first salvo alarm, and I'm laying on the floor there. And so I just barely got my hands over, and the concussion just shook the whole 08.
Yeah, wow. So, yeah, question?
I remember when we went through the chart house, you
Yes.
were telling me about a special piece of equipment.
Right, we had, I think it was the first ship to have GPS.
Mm-hmm. You want to describe that?
Yes, it was about the size of, it was probably 4 feet wide and 6 feet long and 3.5 feet tall. And that was the GPS. And from what my understanding, because I was doing Moran and other radar or navigation, there were only 2 satellites, and so the accuracy with the GPS was within hundreds of feet instead of the ones we have now on our phone that are like, 5 feet or something like that.
Oh, wow. Now, there was one engagement, February of 1969, when
Mhm.
this ship was firing nonstop from, like, I believe, 0100 to, like, the 0600.
I can believe that.
Yeah. Do you remember that?
I probably do, but it's probably just all run in with all the other days that we fired
All right.
continuously. I don't know, was that the second Tet offensive that we were?
Don't know, but through other interviews we've had, Oliver North was on the other line.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And he credits this ship for saving his life that night.
How about that? Yeah, I have run into other people that when I say I served on the New Jersey, that have said that the ship saved many soldiers' lives.
Okay. Now, do you remember soldiers and Marines coming on board for R&R?
Yes, I do,
Relief?
and it happened right outside where my bunk space was. And I remember them, and it probably happened in different locations, but they came in and they were just covered with mud and just collapsed on the floor in the corner just to get off their feet. And we went and got soap and stuff and so that they could go in and take showers, and they were sobbing. They were so happy that they could just have a break. That's
Okay.
when I felt lucky to be a sailor.
I'm pretty sure. Do you remember ever stepping foot on Vietnam, or is that restricted?
I don't know if it was restricted or not, but I never went to Vietnam, never stepped foot.
Okay. Anything else you remember off the coast of Vietnam?
No, it just, like I say, it got to be just a routine. Nothing.
Okay.
I think the most spectacular thing was the plane ditching, my first day there, or within the first week, and then nothing really spectacular ever happened after that.
Okay. And then this ship was told to head back to the States, right?
Right. I had been lucky, and they were choosing someone to go back, to fly back early. There were some spaces on airplanes in Manila, and since I had just been, my wife had just had a baby, I was chosen to take a bus to Manila and fly home, so I flew standby from Manila.
Okay. Now, before we get into your post-naval career, I do remember you did tell me that you won an award while you were on the battleship. You want to describe that in
Actually,
event?
it wasn't an award. It was a commendation.
Commendation, thank
from
you.
the captain, and we actually, it's probably written someplace, the bay that we took the ship into, but we took it in this narrow bay, and to reach a certain target, and I was taking bearings on the 08 along with another guy, and we had to like spin the ship around once we got in there, you know, probably jogging back and forth to get back out again. And so the captain was impressed with our bearing taking. So I have a little letter from him with a picture of me getting this commendation.
Okay. Now, before you got to the States, there was an incident where the North Koreans shot down an American plane.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that?
No.
You might have already been departing.
Right. I might
Okay.
have, since I left early, yeah.
Right.
Okay. So after Vietnam, you're heading back to the States.
Right.
Do you remember the first stop?
Well, I took a bus to Manila, and I think I slept 3 nights, or 3 nights and days in Manila waiting for a plane. So I finally get on this plane, and I forget what the name of it is, but there was another plane inside it. It was so huge, and there were no seats except along the fuselage. So I think there was a Jeep in it too. So we flew to Saipan, landed on Saipan, and then I flew from Saipan to San Francisco.
Okay. So you were off the ship before
Mhm.
the ship made it back to the States,
Right.
right? Oh, okay. So therefore, you weren't on board when the ship was suddenly decommissioned.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Do you remember hearing about the ship being decommissioned?
I think I was so happy to be home that I wasn't paying too much attention.
Okay, because that's when the ship also switched captains
Oh, is that right?
from Captain Snyder to Captain Peniston,
Uh-huh.
and then the ship was decommissioned suddenly.
Right.
The word was economy, but supposedly it was politics,
Mhm.
which
Yeah, I didn't follow that. By then, do you know what year was that, 70?
I believe it was 69.
69.
Okay, 69, I was out of the Navy and starting my career in the Postal Service, and I actually started January of 1970.
That is our next question. Since you got out of the Navy,
Right.
you just mentioned you were a postal worker. What else have you done?
I put 35 years in the Postal Service. My entire career was on barrier islands, Fort Myers Beach, Boca Grande, and Captiva. I started out as a mailman. I wanted to learn more about the business, so I became a clerk inside and worked the window. Then I became a supervisor. And finally, my last 3 positions were as postmaster. So I really enjoyed that, especially on Captiva. Oh, Boca Grande was great too, because they were all affluent communities. So I met movie stars and senators and famous people. I met Katharine Hepburn, and she's probably the most famous person I met. And George H.W. Bush would come to Boca Grande to play golf. And then it was a long drive for me to go to Boca Grande, so then I went to Captiva, which was much closer. It was not an upgrade, it was a transfer, a lateral transfer. And then, you know, there were lots of famous people there too. But I mean, just, I had a tremendous career. And then I told you I had one first little boy, and then I had a daughter. And then after 12 years, my first wife and I divorced, and I married again. And we couldn't have children, so we adopted a baby 1 day old, and she's now 24.
Great.
My wife died a year and a half ago. My 24-year-old is out of the house. I retired from the post office after 35 years, and then I had a business on Sanibel that I ran for 15 years, and sold that 2 months ago. So now I am fully retired. I'm here in Philly to see the Battleship, and I'm going to my old hometown tomorrow, and then up to Canada to see where my mother was from. And then my plan is to just travel.
Great. So your first time you're back?
First time.
What was your impression of her?
I recognized everything about it. I mean, although things like the conning tower and things looked smaller, the 08 looked smaller and all of that, but I don't think I've grown since I was 20 years old, but I just remember it as being larger spaces. But it was just like I was here yesterday. It was just fantastic. I remembered so much about it. And to go into the room up front and find a picture of myself on display with Bert, the bugle player, I forget what his Trottier. He had sent some pictures in of the Quartermasters, and I'm in that group of pictures.
Ah, and these are in the Vietnam exhibit on the ship?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, proof positive I was
So-
really here.
So you're part of our exhibits now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Very
what impact did the Navy have in your life?
I'm going to say things, and I might ask you to edit.
Sure.
When I was when I went home in '69, I flew home, and I saw my baby for the first time. It was born. It was born, I saw it when it was first born, then I didn't see it again for like 8 months. It had a huge impact on me, and I had always been against the war, but now I was like really torn about it. So I went to the chaplain and asked if I could be discharged as a conscientious objector. He told me that the only conscientious objector he ever saw was somebody that would stand by and watch his wife and child be killed. That's a conscientious objector. And so he said, I won't help you at all. So I had my uncle, who was a minister, right, and a couple other people, still no luck. So I decided to purchase some drugs and to turn myself in as a drug user on the ship, having possession of drugs. So I got some LSD.
Write that time down.
And I walked in, probably right down this hall, to the legal office and had a little matchbox. I said, I'm in possession of drugs. I want you to court-martial me and kick me out. Because I couldn't get out any other way. And I was so against the war. So they court-martialed me. They sent me to the brig for 90 days. And the court-martial came out why I was wanting to do it, that I wasn't really a drug user, that I was an exceptional sailor, I'd done all my stuff. So I got an honorable discharge. That's how I ended my career in the Navy. I don't know if I want everybody to know that, but all that came back to me when I walked by the legal office.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Write down that time.
we're just about wrapping up right now. So is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, other than the fact that I have just really enjoyed myself today. And I did not expect to be interviewed. I mean, and to get a private tour. It was just, it's more than I saw that most people spend an hour and a half here, and I thought, what am I gonna do with the rest of the day after I leave the ship? But it's been just great.
Oh, okay. Well, if there's nothing else to say, then I'll conclude this interview. Is there anything else you want to say, Angelo?
No,
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right.
it was our pleasure, and welcome home again.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your service and taking the time to join us. And this concludes our interview. Once again, my name is Hugh Sung, employee here at the Battleship New Jersey, and we're joined by Angelo Pizzullo, education manager on the Battleship New Jersey.